What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Videohomicide, back with another movie review. Today we're going to talk about a film from 2009, directed by and starring Clint Eastwood. We've got Gran Torino. Man, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's my fifth favorite Clint Eastwood film, and this is my list. So it starts off, I would say Gran Torino, and then Fistful of Dollars, A Few Dollars More, Dirty Harry, and then The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly being my favorite. So this is a movie that I enjoyed with my grandpa, who's no longer here. And let me tell you, he was sort of like a more jolly version of Walt Kowalski, who is the character that Clint Eastwood plays in this film. So he plays this Korean War veteran, and his wife recently passes away, and his family is just like total shitheads. Like they don't give a fuck about anything. He's a man of, he's sort of an Americana kind of guy where he believes in buying vehicles made in America and this and that, racist beliefs and stuff like that. A lot of people were like that, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like he's playing some fictional fucking sci-fi guy. I think everybody knows someone like Walt Kowalski. So this family moves in beside him. I don't know which Asian country they're from, but they are Asian descent, and he kind of has this back and forth animosity with them. Starts off with them having a fight that ends up on his lawn. He comes out with his fucking, like, I don't know what kind of rifle it is, but he comes out and he's got a gun pointed at them, saying, "Get the fuck off my lawn," and constantly calling them, excuse the fucking terminology here, but he calls them zipper heads and all this stuff, and like he sits out on his porch and drinks beer and stuff, and he's got this kind of like weird relationship with the priest who his wife was a good friend of, and this and that, but he's really young, so Walt sort of just totally brushes him off as nothing, but he by chance and by attempted robbery of his Gran Torino, he befriends the boy next door, who's this Asian kid. His name's Tao, but Walt calls him Toad, and sort of teaches him, sort of becomes like a father figure to him. And it was a very kind of, I don't think you could really get away with making a movie like this nowadays because of all the blatant racism and stuff like that. But like he's using racial terms, and he is being kind of racist to Toad, but he's kind of taking him under his wing. He's going from getting his car ripped off to being like, you know what, here, help me do some shit or whatever. At one point, Walt needs help moving like a fridge out of his basement, and he breaks down and goes over and talks to Tao. And it's also important to point out that there's this cousin of Tao and his sister, who's a big character in the film as well, but they're like a gang, you know what I mean? I think it takes place in like Michigan or somewhere like that, but there's a couple of different interactions with this gang that Tao has. The first one, of course, being them trying to make him steal the Gran Torino and stuff like that. But Tao's sort of trying to get away from that. He just kind of wants to be like a regular kid. The sister doesn't want any part of like the gang bullshit. She's against it, which results in her later on being like sexually assaulted by her cousin and the gang, which is totally fucked up. Hate seeing that, but I love the reaction and the ending of this film with what Walt does, you know what I mean? So of course there's lots of like really good moments in the movie where Walt is trying to get him to to know how to talk to like men, so he takes him to the barber shop. And this is the part that really gets me, man, because like I used to cut my grandpa's hair, and there's a scene where they're telling him how to come into a barber shop. So when Walt comes in, he's like, "Hey, you fucking, you Italian prick barber ya," or whatever. And, he's like, "Do that." So Tao goes in, and he goes outside, comes back in, he goes, "Hey, Italian prick, blah, blah, blah," and all this. And he eventually comes in, he goes, "Hey, you old Italian prick barber." And my grandpa, John, Stu, we call him, like, he said that to me every time I cut his hair. Every time. He'd be like, "Ah, you old Italian prick barber." But, so that scene I love. I love how, Walt takes him to get his tool belt and the tools and stuff, and Tao's like, "Well, I got no money. I can't pay for this." He's like, "You'll pay me back on your first check." And it's like, you can tell, like, a guy like Walt, and the reason I say he reminds me of my grandpa, because, like, my grandpa would go out and, like, tinker around in his garage and stuff like that, and, carpent, like, would build stuff, woodworking and all that shit. That wasn't his career, but, I mean, that's what he did when he was retired, right? So, like, it's almost like Walt is looking at Tao as like a project. You know, he's turning this kid into a man, teaching him how to be a man. He takes him to, you know, to this job interview with this guy that he knows, and by way of like what he was taught by Walt, he kind of gets himself this job, and Walt is there, and it's like a really good moment. You know, it's like a little like a fucking whatchamacallit, like a little Irish guy, and like Walt is like really plays on the stereotypes of everybody, you know what I mean? So like a drunken Irish guy, greasy Italian, like all this kind of stuff. So a big you know, probably no for kids of this era, this generation. Like they can't handle anything. Like this is a movie, I think like it's a better film if you've had like a, and when I say, like, my grandpa was not like a racist piece of shit like Walt Kowalski. Like my grandpa made a lot of funny jokes, like, you know, like my brother's black, like they were mixed race family and stuff, you know what I mean? So he was never like a cocksucker like that, but he would say funny race, he was in the Navy too, so like he would say all these funny fucking jokes that like we just couldn't help ourselves. So like when this movie came along, we were all like, man, this is Stu, like this is totally Stu, like holy fuck. And he loved this film, man, and this is actually his copy. So his copy is in my collection, and that's another thing we've talked about on the channel before, man, like the importance of, you know, being able to relate a film to a person, but not only that, but owning their copy of said film or book or CD or album, whatever it is, painting, whatever it is. So there's also the digital code here, which expired in 2009. If anyone's interested, you can go back in time like fucking Dr. Evil. Yeah, I love the turnout of this movie, how like this gang that's been causing all this bullshit, they even do a drive-by on their own family's house, and like I said, like they rape the sister and all that stuff. But Walt, like at the end of the film, he goes and like he gets a suit hemmed up and all this, and like he knows he's sick, he's found out he's sick and all this shit. So he decides he's going to go out like a true champ. And spoiler alert, I got to talk about the ending because it's just so fucking dope. He goes to the house of this gang, and he's out front, and he makes it look like he's there to like cause some shit. And he reaches in his pocket, and he just pulls out a lighter, and they blow him away. And, you know, at the end, the cops are like, we finally have the evidence we need, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, we can finally lock this gang up, and like the neighborhood's going to be safer and all this shit. And Walt's bullshit family, like especially the one daughter, was like, what are you going to do with this car when you die? And like that's totally fucked to say, first of all, but I love sort of his rebuttal to that, because when they go to read off like the will at the lawyer's office, like Walt left Tao the Gran Torino. Like he's going through things, he's like, oh, I leave this for whoever, I want the house sold and the money gone to the church, because like Walt sort of like makes his peace with the young priest guy. And you know, the car, the Gran Torino, goes to Tao, as long as he doesn't do what the Spics do, and what like he says all this shit, right? And it's like a really good moment, because like it just shows Tao with like a smile on his face, because like he knows Walt, he knows how Walt is, and it's cool to see like his final resolve, like him driving the Gran Torino, because the film is called Gran Torino, but the Gran Torino is like not in the film like a lot. Like I mean, it shows it a few times, it's not really driven around until the end. It shows Tao driving it, and it's a very bittersweet moment, you know. And then the song comes on. It's not like, I wish that it was Tao, the actor that plays Tao, doing the song with Clint. I think it would have been so much better, but regardless, it's still a good song. Another good song that Clint Eastwood did was with Ray Charles at the beginning of Every Which Way You Can, which is a sequel to Any Which Way But Loose. A beautiful fucking song. When I hear that song, I bawl my eyes out, because I equate that to my grandpa Stu and my brother's dad Richie. So, you know, white guy, old white guy, you know, mid-40s black dude. Like, I don't know, it's fucking crazy. Life is crazy, man, and it's crazy how like movies can affect you. Even now, like just thinking about it, like I'm talking, but I'm thinking about like the old days, the good old days, you know. So we'll leave it at that, man. I appreciate everybody for watching. Make sure you leave a 666 in the comments. Hopefully you're enjoying these non-horror films, because like we just had the month of horror. I want to talk about some of my favorites, and you know, I pulled off two off the shelf tonight. You already know what the other one was, The Warriors. But yeah, Gran Torino is a sick flick, so definitely check that shit out. Like I said, have a good night. My fucking gun cup is now empty.